Hi there, it's time to look at Ripple through the Wyckoff lens. If you're new to my session, here are the 3 key items I covered during the session. So let's start with the weekly chart of Ripple. I know it's a red sea across the board today, but let's not worry about it if crypto is going to stay and if the projects have great potential. If you have been following it, understand it, did research about it, we all know these cycles comes and go. So here, last week or even before, we talked about Ripple is going to a sign of weakness stage, and the question is basically trying to confirm whether we are going to have a rebound last week, and indeed it has, even though it's small. If I change the line chart, you see this little peak over there. So these two have been confirmed. So what's going to happen next? It would come down to test the 1.8 orange key level. And there may be another rebound as well. So this may well repeat for another round before, XRP or Ripple is actually or really getting into the accumulation cycle. Alright, so if it continues to drop without a rebound, those two, we can get rid of those because it has directly entered the accumulation. So look at what happened over here. Okay, after the last round, those are smaller tags. I haven't enlarged them because we seldom get back to that. But let's say if it's something like that happened in 2022. Okay, after the last one, they never get to another rebound again, and so that preliminary support stage sits over there. Okay, and there are more tests that follows after the selling climax, and I have brought in something interesting for us to put into the chart so you can visualize what actually are the behaviors during those Wyckoff stages. So let's start with the distribution. Since we're still within the distribution, the very first stage, the preliminary supply, is actually when the whales first started selling. So imagine the price has gone up so high that the whales said it's time to take profit. So that's why they made the dent over there. But retail, the smaller fishes like us, continues to get in. And then they are celebrating, buying the dip, even when the second time, it comes, and also the upthrust that, setting all-time highs, everybody is celebrating it, but then that's actually late FOMO or fake boo. And then now we're seeing this decline where the whales are probably finishing off their offloading, getting rid of everything they have left on hand, sitting on the sideline, opening champagne and wait for the accumulation to start again. This second test, I would say it will drop by another 10% now, the chance. Alright, when we get to the year end, it's quite likely that the accumulation is where it's heading to. So, what about accumulation? What's actually happening during this period? This PS period that we are expecting to come is actually the panic sell period, but the whales also got in during this time. So if you look at here, look at this long wick from the bottom. There's somebody got in. Retail able to make such an observable thing in the charts, in the weekly chart I'm talking about. Okay, that's almost impossible. Okay, there's something big that got in. Of course, they did it over time, like many tests and many sign of strengths. So the automatic rally kind of set the trading range top. So you see, if there's a line over here, you see where my guide is, right? The trading along the accumulation, other than the peaks of the sign of strength, mostly ended around that particular level. Alright, and then the sign of strengths are the one that advances with volume. You see the volume, the white bars higher than the average across the accumulation. That's the sign of strength. And then obviously there can be backup period where the whale's trying to do the final test of weaker hands or diamond hands. Of course, the previous test as well. You know, how many weak hands are still there willing to sell their stuff, and how many are diamond hands, and the price can't go any further down. So that's the final test before the whales pushes the price up. The selling climax is where the panic is over, and the volume went very low. Likewise, the price spread. Okay, so this, if we're entering a new accumulation cycle for Ripple, that's what comes next after the preliminary support stage. Okay, it's just a coincidence that panic selling, this PS, you know, the acronym, the shorthand is the same, not intentional, just coincidence. Whales long, that's where the backup last point of support during those periods. The final stage of them getting in probably. And then the price got triggered to pump all the way for however long people find reasons to stay in or get in until the point there's no more news to sell. Alright, that's the big picture. And when we get to the daily chart, here we're seeing the downtrend or the air hockey table. So this light blue box, if you're new to my session, keep in mind this air hockey terminology for the time being. I'll explain it in a second. If this entire period after October 10th is the preliminary support stage, okay, and then whether or would this be the selling climax that we've experienced during the 22nd or 20th to 22nd, and also after that the automatic rally? This is just the daily time frame. Remember, Wyckoff, this method wasn't designed for this kind of time frame. They assume the big guys are going to plan and move on the more long-term time frame like the weekly. So this is more of an experiment, you know, in the daily time frame. If this is what we're going through, and the price is going to come down for further tests or deeper tests, remember the selling climax is a lot of times not the lowest point during the accumulation. So expect there can be more to come. If we look at the long-term playground zone, this white box, it is an area or a zone that tracks the price of Ripple in this case. For 70 or 80% of the time, Ripple was trading within this zone, you know, since 2017. Okay, only during these crazy distribution climaxes or peaks has gone outside of this area. For Ripple, I may have to make some adjustments as well, because it has gone through that prolonged regulatory battle, and that its playground zone may not be flat anymore. So in Ethereum or in Bitcoin sessions, you'll see I have put the box slightly trending upwards. You call that inflationary or deflationary factor. That's basically it. Its base price is ascending along with time. Look at Ripple's chart. It does exhibit similar kind of behavior. And I hope if it really comes down for an accumulation this time, it's going to end up along the line of that trend. So if I were to adjust this now, okay, let's assume that's the case, and you can see me adjust this along the bottom, the previous lows. Okay, if this is really the trend that Ripple is going through, then when it comes down, it should end somewhere higher than 50 cents. Okay, currently is at $2. I know what I said sounds a bit crazy to some of you, but that's the worst case scenario. October 10th showed us it can get to 70-80 cents, so there's no reason why it can't go deeper. When the whales are trying to shake people out, they can use whatever ways to test our patience and our risk appetite until the point that they break everybody they are able to break. Alright, so Ripple, one more thing, breakout time point that I haven't touched on yet. So this air hockey table, again, coming back to explain what it is. Look at the price. Imagine it's the puck traveling along the table. It bounces off the ceiling and the bottom, the two edges, as well as the center line. So that's what happened over the past couple of days. It bounces off from the center line again, just to get back to the weaker half or the lower half of the table. So for the breakout to happen, the price has to go back to the stronger half of the table. Alright, and then these are the opportunities that we see. So assuming it stays above the yellow key level of around $2, this points to February. I know it's very far in time, but let's keep it like this for the time being. And then mid-March, if it dips to the orange key level of $1.80. Even further down is towards mid-April, if it comes down to travel or trade sideways between the red key level and the orange key level of 1.55 to 1.80. That's a kind of pessimistic scenario, but possible. Okay, so while I said we don't hope it to return to the long-term playground zone, but a lot of times during accumulation or during the low time, that's where it's going to end up around. And October 10th indicated that there's a chance going to at least the center line of the long-term playground zone. That's around $1.10. Okay, I know nobody hopes that it goes that low, but who knows what, right? If it does happen, and Ripple, if it continues strong and continue to deliver, and its adoption is going to grow, then the dip is only a transitory stage before the next big move is going to come. Alright, so whether you are a person that buys into the doomsday theory and all crypto will go zero, or whether you are positive about crypto and that the comeback will happen eventually, that's all a good experience that we're going through. Thanks for